I was finally levying the dream. It took years of hustle, endless hours, holidays spent behind a desk, and a constant grind that I thought would never end. But here I was. My name is Detective Ray Thompson, and after 15 years in law enforcement, I finally did it. My family and I had moved into the suburban neighborhood of Oakwood Acres, one of those places where the lawns are always green, the streets are lined with trees, and the houses all look like they came straight out of a magazine. My wife, Sarah, had been dreaming about this place for years. Ever since we first passed through 5 years ago, she'd pointed at the tree-lined streets and said, "Ray, one day, our son Ethan will ride his bike down these sidewalks." And she wasn't wrong. Ethan, our 8-year-old, was over the moon about the move. After being stuck in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment, the idea of having a real yard to run around in, with a tire swing hanging from an old oak tree I'd put up myself, felt like freedom. The first week was perfect. It was almost suspiciously perfect. The neighbors, like the Harrisons next door, had welcomed us with homemade cookies and smiles. Mr. Jenkins, across the street, spent an hour teaching me how to properly water the lawn while chatting about his grandkids. Even Ethan made a friend, Mia, who lived just a few houses down. They bonded over their love of superheroes. Everything seemed like it was falling into place. But of course, it didn't last. In my line of work, you develop a sixth sense about people. You can tell when something isn't right, even when everything around you seems perfect. And from the moment I met my neighbor, Victoria Pedersen, something about her set my radar off. It was that first Saturday morning. I was unloading the last of the moving boxes when I noticed her standing outside, trimming her hedges with a precision that screamed control freak. I made my way over with a big smile, offering my hand, saying, "Hi, I'm Ray Thompson, your new neighbor." She didn't even look at my hand, just gave me a once-over, like she was sizing me up. "Victoria Pedersen," she said, voice flat. Her eyes scanned me head to toe like I was some kind of project she was trying to fix. Then she sniffed, literally sniffed, and said, "I hope you people understand that we have standards here in Oakwood Acres. People like us," she said. The words lingered in the air, thick with judgment. But I was a professional. I had seen this before, in the field, in the streets, in the neighborhoods where the sun didn't shine. I just smiled bigger and said, "Of course, Mrs. Pedersen. We're looking forward to being part of the community." She didn't respond, just sniffed again and went back to her hedge trimming. When I told Sarah about it later, she just laughed it off. "Ray, honey, she's probably one of those people who hates change. Give her time." But I wasn't so sure. It wasn't just the way she'd looked at me. It was something deeper, something that made my cop instincts start buzzing in my brain. I couldn't shake it. For the next week, things went on without incident. Ethan walked to school, back home, no problems. He loved it. I'd walk him every morning before heading off to work. And then, in the afternoon, he'd make the short trek back home by himself. The whole thing seemed so normal, so suburban, like we were part of the world I'd always dreamed about. But then, one Tuesday afternoon, something in my gut told me to go pick up Ethan from school. I don't know why, I couldn't explain it, but I just had this feeling. I pulled up to Riverside Elementary just as the bell rang, and I saw Ethan sprinting toward me, his Spider-Man backpack bouncing on his back, that smile of his lighting up the whole parking lot. "Dad, what are you doing here?" he asked, grinning from ear to ear. I smiled back, ruffling his hair. "Thought I'd walk you home today. How was school?" As we walked, Ethan told me about his day, how he aced his math quiz, how Mrs. Thomas read them a story about a night, how Mia shared her cookies with him at lunch. You know, the stuff that makes a parent's heart swell with pride. We turned onto Oakwood Drive, our street, and there she was, Victoria Pedersen, standing on her front porch, arms crossed, watching us like a hawk. At first, I thought it was just me being paranoid. But then I saw the look in her eyes, the way she was tracking every step Ethan took, like she was waiting for something to happen. "Why is she staring at us like that, Dad?" Ethan whispered, his voice suddenly small. I shook my head. I don't know, buddy. But let's just keep walking. We were almost at our front steps when Victoria made her move. Excuse me, she called out, striding toward us like she was on a mission. Excuse me. Her tone was sharp, demanding. It felt like she was about to accuse me of something. I felt Ethan's hand slip into mine, his palms sweaty, but it wasn't fear, it was instinct. He knew something wasn't right too. Yes, ma'am, I said, keeping my voice calm, professional. This child, she said, pointing at Ethan like he was a criminal, has been wandering around unsupervised. I said. You're not allowed to let children like this roam the streets. It's unsafe. You people don't belong here. I could feel the blood rush to my head, my patience wearing thin. But I kept my cool. Ma'am, this is my son. We live right here. We've been here less than a week. She didn't believe me. No, you don't. There's no way someone like you lives here. She looked me up and down with that same scornful stare, like she couldn't believe a man who looked like me could afford a house in Oakwood Acres. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about Ethan. This wasn't just about my son walking home from school. This was about who belonged in this neighborhood and who didn't. Ma'am, I said, trying to keep the anger from my voice. We just moved in. I introduced myself to you last week. Her eyes narrowed, but she wasn't done. Children shouldn't be walking around like this. It brings down property values. You're clearly here to cause trouble. She was calling my son dangerous. My 8-year-old son, with his Spider-Man backpack, his cargo shorts, his little shoes that barely fit him anymore. That was it. I let go of Ethan's hand. I needed to stand my ground. Ma'am, I said, taking a step forward. I'm going to ask you one more time to step aside so we can go into our home. She just smirked. Or what? She taunted. I reached into my jacket and pulled out my badge. I'm Detective Ray Thompson, Metro Police Department. And this is my son. You're blocking access to my property, and you're making false accusations. I suggest you step aside. For the first time, she looked unsure. But it didn't last long. I'm calling 911, she said, pulling out her phone. And she did. She called 911, claiming we were burglars, saying we were trying to break into our own home. I watched her on the phone, her voice shaking with fake fear, as my son stood there, confused. Dad, why is she lying about us? He asked. Some people get confused, buddy, I said, keeping my voice steady. But we'll fix it. By the time the cops arrived, I knew what was coming. The officers knew me, and I knew them. The situation was already escalating, and I was ready to face whatever came next. The officers arrived, and Dorothy immediately started her story again. She accused us of trying to break into our own house. But Detective Mike Torres, who had known me for years, could tell right away that something wasn't right. It didn't take long for him to ask the right questions that made Dorothy's story unravel. And when it did, it was like the whole neighborhood started to see her for who she really was. By the time the truth came out, I wasn't the only one standing up for myself and my family. My neighbors had seen through her lies too, and soon the whole block knew what kind of person Victoria Pedersen really was. And when I posted the 911 call online, it went viral. Dorothy went from being the self-proclaimed protector of the neighborhood to the villain of the story. Justice was served, but it wasn't just about the lies she told. It was about the lesson Ethan learned that day about standing up for yourself, about knowing who you are and not letting anyone define you based on their prejudice. In the end, she moved away. But for me and Ethan, Oakwood Acres was finally home. The place we dreamed about. The place where we belonged. So what do you think? Was justice served? Should people like Victoria Pedersen be held accountable for their actions? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this one.